Ever since the Reconquista started over 600 years ago, kicking out the Muslim Umayyad dynasty, the Iberian Peninsula has slowly consolidated into three separate Christian realms. The Kingdom of Portugal in the west, the Crown of Castile in the center, and the Crown of Aragon in the east. Formed around 200 years ago through a marriage between the Princess of Aragon and the Count of Barcelona, the Crown of Aragon now stands as a significant power in the western Mediterranean Sea, thanks to its holdings along the Iberian east coast, in addition to newly acquired lands on Sardinia and a Majorcan vassal kingdom. But before we start, I want to thank Paradox Interactive for sponsoring today's video and granting me early access to EU5. If you're interested in the game, make sure to click the link in the description and use code SWINSPAL at checkout to further support the channel. Back to Aragon, our young and newly crowned monarch, Pere IV, has ambitious plans to extend our realm. Being allied with Sicily, who's ruled by the same dynasty as we are eyeing for conquest in Italy against our rivals of Naples. But all eventual conquests can only be successful if our homies. And back in Iberia there is a lot of work to do. Starting by balancing the budget, thanks to a hefty trade income and significant taxes on our bourgeoisie and commoners, we have a positive income, which will allow us to invest back into our economy. With trading being such an important part of our nation, Pere IV enacted a significant government reform to create a trade office network. We also started sponsoring trade centers as a privilege to the bourgeoisie. But to balance our estate's satisfactions, an important thing for stability, the navy was put in the hands of the nobles to satisfy them, allowing us to safely raise taxes on both nobles and the bourgeoisie. A monarch can't rule alone, however, so appointing a new cabinet, we sent Mariano the Great to increase our control in the lower parts of our lands, which will allow us to take out more taxes, while Pere de Tus was sent to integrate our newly acquired lands in Sardinia. Thanks to our significant income and some ducats already in our coffers, we started investing into our economy, putting our focus on expanding the production of raw goods currently missing in our economy. We built clay pits and scaled up our livestock and fruit resource gathering operations. Having run out of money for now, we will continue investing every time we have enough to continue. As we passively do, we will return to the global stage, being surrounded by enemies from every side except the north. Thanks to France being distracted against England, we need to secure some more alliances. Continuing our focus in Italy, we signed an alliance with the Papal States, who are already allied with Sicily, forming a three-way anti-Naples front. In our west, Castille is breathing down our neck, having declared us as their rivals, but thankfully our relations aren't detrimental, so to protect ourselves from them, we approached them to form a defensive league. And with them more worried about the Muslims in the south, they agreed. So with our diplomacy successful for now, we returned inwards, where our king had reformed our legal code, which standardized the process of coronation and centralized our realm. Our investments would also continue. In Barcelona we opened the second Tailors Guild, the most profitable of all productions. And to improve the market balance of books, we opened a few scriptoriums in the towns around Barcelona, where control and our tax income is the highest. It was only 3 years after becoming king that Pere IV saw his first conflict. Called into the first Sicilian-Tunisian war, we joined to support our allies. To our surprise, the Tunisians sent their army to siege down Majorca, so we were forced to raise our levies. Sending over the 18,000 strong army to the island, we came to the rescue of Palma, completely decimating the Tunisian army, as with our navy blockading the island, they had nowhere to run. So with only 1/10 of our enemy army left, we sent our army straight to Tunis, the capital. We wouldn't have the chance to siege down the city, however, as Sicily and Tunis had reached a peace agreement. One significantly weakening Tunis by releasing several regions and expanding the realm of Sicily to Africa. We didn't gain anything in it, but a stronger ally is a stronger Aragon. Quickly demobilizing, we returned to look inwards, where our king had his first parliament with the estates, one being held every 4 years. This is, for example, where casus belli can be fabricated, but focusing on building up our nation, we instead pass the Market Expansion Act so we can make even more trade profit. Continuing as usual with the economic investments, from lumber mills to lower the price of lumber, making buildings cheaper, to increasing wheat output, to expanding our high-end guilds. At one point we started hearing more and more rumors from our allies in Italy about new ideas of governance and economy. What would later become known as the Age of Renaissance has started. But it is so far only rumors, and our research into the Christian faith continues as usual. With our economic investments starting to show their fruits, we began planning for our expansionist objectives. The first step in that is to consolidate our current lands, which has already started in Sardinia with its slow integration. But Majorca also has to be integrated, as the ruler has been a real pain to deal with. So we put in motion the plan to bring their king to trial for minting his own coins. But since he didn't comply to our call for trial, we took it as a declaration of independence from his side, an independence we don't agree with. Quickly raising our levies, we started by dealing with the Majorcan holdings in northern Catalonia, defeating their minuscule army protecting it and occupying Perpignan. With their mainland forces dealt with, we shipped over our army to their island, aiding our papal allies with sieging down the fort of Palma. After defeating their army on the island and cracking open their defenses to occupy Palma, we won their puny war of independence, annexing and fully integrating all Majorcan lands. Soon after, the Estate Parliament was called, where we decided to use our noble support to fabricate a claim against our biggest economic rival, Genoa. Declaring war on them, our hopes are to be able to annex all of Sardinia and Corsica, to cement our place in the Western Mediterranean Sea and further introduce our merchants in the Genova market. Catching the smaller Genoese navy off guard upon war declaration, we were able to sink all of their battle-capable ships, allowing us to then chase down their transport ships and destroy their whole army to reinforce Sardinia. This meant we could safely transport our own troops to the island, where we quickly occupied their lands and defeated a 2,000-strong army which had somehow sneaked in. With Sardinia occupied, we sent our troops to Corsica, where even less resistance was met. Instead, we would have to battle the Genoese army in Catalonia as they occupied Perpignan. Outnumbering them here too, this was no issue, and so after occupying all of Corsica, we signed a peace agreement with Genoa, who were forced to accept. The two islands are now fully owned by us, and Genoa is forced to pay us war reparations and a big lump sum of money. This money came at the perfect time, because having heard rumors of a deadly disease spreading from the lands of the Golden Horde, we decided to prepare for the worst and construct hospitals in our two biggest cities. Not having enough money for any more investments, all we can do now is to brace ourselves for impact. It was about 2 years later that the plague reached our borders for the first time, spreading through trade. Continuing to fear the worst, having had horror stories from England and the East, we quickly moved the court into hiding, isolated our country and segregated the sick. With stability quickly collapsing, we tried to find culprits, like the heretics living in our lands, which at least brought us over negative stability. But having done everything we could, all that is left is to wait and pray. 2 years of death and misery, the Black Death has finally left our country, taking with it the souls of 56,000 people, one of which was our king. With his heir not even being 1 year old, a noble regency has been put in place, which will rule in these difficult times. A lot of jobs need to be filled up again, stability is hovering around zero, and our income has completely collapsed. But we will rebuild and use this as an opportunity to surpass our rivals and continue the work that Pere IV started. During all the reconstruction, not really that much happened. In Sardinia, our integration process finally started being successful, and in foreign policy we decided to remain neutral in a possible Castilian civil war, not wanting to anger the other side if we support the losing side. Instead, we decided to use this chaos in Castile to expand our holdings in Iberia. Once again, in accordance with the nobility, we fabricated a claim on Navarre and declared war on the small Basque monarchy. Despite our levies being a lot less than before the Black Death, we still outnumbered the Navarre army almost 10-1, granting us an easy victory in the first battle. Chasing down their retreating forces, we left them with no defenses, allowing us to siege down their fort of Lizara in complete calmness. After rapidly destroying their newly raised levies and that of their ally, we occupied their capital and the rest of the surrounding lands, which led to them surrendering. While we could fully annex them, already having trouble integrating Sardinia and Corsica, we decided to instead vassalize the kingdom, which will force them to help us in every war and pay us every month. The following years, our heir slowly came of age, and in 1363 he finally became crowned as king. Marrying the young Duchess of Provence, a marriage union between our two nations has been formed, which means that if they get a child, we would have the same heir and therefore form a union. The following years, our income would continue to pick up, especially thanks to an increase in trade activity. Our new monarch would also continue his father's work, starting just like him with a war against Tunis together with Sicily. Fighting in Africa this time, we saw plenty of losses, but could always win against the Tunis army in the narrowest of battles. Reaching a peace agreement with the Tunisians alone this time, we took control of Annaba, establishing a fiefdom in the province. With the Castilian Civil War also coming to an end, our relations would continue to be great, as our defensive alliance expanded to include Portugal as well. Our economy has now reached higher levels than before the Black Death, but so has that of Naples, who still remain stronger than us. So if we want to have a chance to outcompete them, maybe we should start expanding into Italy. Finding Florence to be the perfect state to attack due to their alliances, we convinced Sicily to isolate them, allowing us to declare war without breaking our long-term friendship. Immediately upon war declaration, the Pisa navy was sunk, so we could safely transport our levies across the western Med. Before landing in Pisa, we had to take a quick pit stop, destroying their army who had slipped past into Corsica. But after that, we landed on mainland Italy and sieged down our first fort. After taking it over, we started sieging the capital of Pisa while simultaneously destroying the rest of the enemy armies, who despite being more technologically advanced due to them having adopted the professional armies of the Renaissance, were all crushed thanks to our massive numerical superiority. A few months later, we had occupied all of Pisa and sieged down Florence, which means we have resoundingly won the war. Just like with Navarre, we vassalized all three enemy states, firmly cementing our presence in Italy. With this victory, our monarch decided to stay peaceful for the rest of his days, preparing the economy for the union with Provence. This allowed our cabinet to finally finish with the integration of Sardinia and Corsica and move on to other matters. Despite the peace, there were still some military developments, as inspired by the Italians, we embraced the institution of professional armies. That of banking was also embraced, which will greatly help us in our trading endeavors. We would immediately use this discovery to research towards distant markets and improve trade fleets to increase our maritime presence. With that researched after a few years, we embraced our final institution, the Renaissance, which will allow us to get one more government reform and a third cabinet seat. Passing a royal decree, we strengthened the rule of our monarch to attempt to centralize our lands, and with the third cabinet seat filled, we sent him to help our other member to assimilate Sardinia into the Catalan culture to fully core the island. This time of peace was extremely successful, as our economy blossomed so much that our tax base even caught up and surpassed that of Naples. But these times couldn't last forever, and our 63-year-old king would see one final war. The French, having won the 100 Years' War against the English, declared war on us with the goal of taking over Navarre. This is where our defensive league came into effect, as together with Portugal, Castile, Provence and the Papal States we stand against this aggression. Trying our best to hold off the French hordes, we could destroy some of their first small invading armies, but we were soon overwhelmed despite our allies' help. After losing a major battle in the Pyrenees, our newly crowned king, Alfonso V, ruler over Aragon, Provence, Down, Mondovì and Prato, saw no way out except for surrendering. Meeting with the French king, who despite our war we still have great relations with, we agreed to his demands of releasing Navarre. Because this short war wasn't really against us, but against Navarre, the French rivals. Spending the next years continuing the peaceful works of his father, Alfonso V could cement our economic lead over Naples. A big focus was also put on moving away from tradition towards a more innovative society inspired by the Renaissance research. With the construction of the universities of Valencia and Barcelona, together with codifying education for the common people, we will increase literacy. The union together with Provence was developed and centralized as we established seniority, making us the senior partner. After 10 years of union, all inheritance laws of our countries were merged to ensure that the ruler of Aragon always is the ruler of Provence as well, something which will pave the way for eventual unifications. While this long-term peace was great for all internal matters, like our economy now massively outpacing Naples, externally our place in Europe has turned shaky. Castile has left our defensive league, and having lost Sicily as an ally, they are being invaded by our main rival. Even Tunis, who we defeated so many times, has grown back stronger. Additionally, while we have adopted professional armies, no research at all has been done into it, so our current army remains painfully out of touch. We need to return to military greatness. Thankfully, with a strong economic and internal base, it won't be that hard. Starting with expanding our navy with more cattle and galleys, 9 carracks and some caravels, we will construct the biggest navy in the Mediterranean Sea. Switching to research into land armies after this, we will advance towards armories, a building which will allow us to recruit manpower for a professional and permanent army. Since a modern army takes time to build up, however, we decided to make a complete diplomatic turnaround in the meantime. We left the defensive league, and with a royal marriage with France, we joined a defensive and normal alliance with them instead. While they probably won't help us in our offensive wars, being allied with the strongest kingdom in Europe will deter all our enemies from making first moves. It would be about 20 years later that we were ready for war once again, having recruited a 3,000-strong regular army. With France greatly weakening the Holy Roman Empire of Bohemia, we saw our chance to continue our expansion into northern Italy by declaring war on Genoa. Let our military golden age begin. 3 consecutive victories, the trade empire of Genoa has been destroyed and its lands and markets integrated. We've reached the eastern Mediterranean Sea with our vassal on the island of Crete, and finally with a conclusive victory over Tunis, their main lands, including their capital, has been seized. Of course, it will be hard to integrate this African territory due to a hostile culture and religion, but even as a glorified trade outpost, owning the market center of the Tunis market is well worth it. With military technology having advanced a lot, with innovation into cannons and gunpowder, we stand ready. So in this new age of discovery, we will discover how it feels to destroy our long-term main rival, the Kingdom of Naples. Declaring war and raising our 37,000 strong army, we sent it over to the Italian peninsula, where we'll together with our Italian vassals march southwards into Naples. The first major battle would take place around Florence, where we caught the Neapolitan army and dealt them 4,400 casualties, starting the war with a victory. Moving towards our first fort, that of Atri, we had to quickly abandon the plan of already starting to occupy their provinces, because the enemy army had returned and were ravaging our smaller allies. So initiating a second battle, our experienced general once again led us to victory. Chasing down the fleeing army this time, instead of going to siege, we reduced their army to only about 10,000 men. Feeling convinced they wouldn't return after this, we restarted our siege efforts, splitting our army in two and beginning from the north. Soon enough, with the forts of Arte and Aquia captured, we reached the forts on the western beaches, where we, thanks to our cannons, were able to take control over them after less than a year. Moving on, the siege of Naples started, which went by just like the others, as the garrisons eventually had to surrender. So, with their capital fallen and their army probably hiding in Greece, the rest of the kingdom was soon enough occupied and we could force the king of Naples to accept our demands. Just like with Tunis, we seized their most valuable lands, which indeed includes Naples and its market center. The following 20 years, the long process of integration, conversion and assimilation of both our Italian and Tunisian lands would begin. During this time period, the union integration with Provence would also progress. Having already unified all state manners, the only question remaining was the unification of the crowns. And by bribing the Provence nobles and couriers, the answer was simple: a rapid unification of the crowns. It would take about 10 years of work, but in 1480 the duchy and our kingdom were united. This new land will be a great addition to our kingdom. As an example, it has massively strengthened our dominance in the Genoa market. Starting only on the most western side of the Mediterranean, we now rule the whole western Mediterranean, controlling all of its 4 markets. Thanks largely due to this trade dominance, we have the 7th most income in our known world. Our strength hasn't only been in trade, but in science too, having one of the highest literacy rates among large nations, and with our presence in Italy, the current scientific hub, we've been able to quickly embrace the institutions of the age of discovery, such as the printing press. So, as the news of a brand new world to the west spreads throughout Europe, I want to once again thank Paradox Interactive for sponsoring today's video. We haven't even played through half the timeline of EU5, so if you yourself want to try playing Aragon and maybe expanding to the new world in the west, or play a completely different nation, then make sure to click the link in the description and use code SWINSPAL at checkout. Anyways, thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed today's video and see you in the next one.